Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of In Conversation. Today, I have with me Mr. Ananth Chandramouli. He's the Executive Vice President and Managing Director of India Business Unit Capgemini. Hi, Ananth. How are you doing?
Wonderful, Anish, and thank you for having me here today. Pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Same here. I think we are going to have an interesting conversation today. And what we are going to discuss today is how GCCs and IT service providers can partner to accelerate the AI-led transformation. We are in an interesting time, Anand, where everyone is talking about AI. Just to, put it in perspective, we are looking at about $7 to $10 billion of market size of the AI from India alone, right? About 1.2 million trained workforce of AI/ML in India, right? And everyone around us, be it GCCs or the IT service providers, are engaged in some form or the other in one or the other AI projects. And that's where I think we should be talking about what is changing and how service providers and GCC can partner more to make sure that the impact is more positive for the business. So that's where the topic is. And let me begin with asking you, according to you, what are the most significant shifts that you see that are forcing GCCs and IT service provider to rethink how they have been working, independently or to.
So, Anish, thanks for that question. First of all, we are living in exciting times. We seem to be at crossroads more often nowadays. Um, Firstly, I think well before the GCCs became the toast of the town, I have been a great proponent of collaboration and cooperation between GCCs and IT service providers, at least for the last 5 years or so. And I believe that proposition has only been further strengthened by this technology shift. So if we go back to the basics, the raison d'etre of GCCs, at least the new ones, they have a strategic mandate of being the innovation engine. And if I were to put this core and context paradigm there, the GCCs are meant to focus on the core, what is core to the enterprise, and help create competitive advantage. So, coming to your question on how GCCs and IT service providers should rethink amidst this technology shift, I look at this through three dimensions. First is the technology and talent dimension. Okay, about a decade and a half back, the technology was more stable and it was evolving at a fairly, not so rapid pace. And talent was not such a big problem. So there are quite a few long tenured GCCs that have been very successful, creating a large base of talent with the right kind of capabilities, etc. Okay, so that is the first one. What happened, a few years back. Second is value and scale. Again, all these long tenured GCCs, they could do a lot themselves, adding value to their enterprises by their own scaling, right? The last one was ecosystem. Ecosystem was important. Ecosystem amongst peer GCCs, IT service providers, as well as the startups. A decade and a half back, it was not the highest priority. It was a nice to have. But fast forward to now, right? Again, looking at these three dimensions, technology and talent. Technology changes are now radical, complex, and rapid, right? We are kind of wake up in the morning and kind of talking about new technology every day. So the upskilling of the talent is becoming more and more difficult and a costly proposition. And more importantly, the fabric of the organization structure itself is changing, right? So that is the first dimension. Second is, I think, the value. The new GCCs are coming with a much more fresher and open mindset to say that, look, ultimately, I'm here to add value to my enterprise. And it doesn't matter where the scale is going to come from, right? So this is where I think the scale could be coming from the partners. And this is where the last bit ecosystem comes into play. Amidst these times of rapid technology shift and the talent challenges that we have, the most important thing is the ecosystem. So I would even go to the extent of saying there is no other choice in today's world but to embrace the ecosystem, right? This I, me, myself attitude will not work for both the GCCs as well as the IT service providers. So this is the time for true collaboration. Those who stay away from this natural phenomenon of collaboration are risking themselves. So finally, what should the GCCs and IT service providers be really doing amidst this rapid technology shift? Number one, I think GCCs must continue to be closer to their business. They have been, and they will continue to focus on what is core to their enterprise and drive competitive advantage. The technology service providers like us take the onus of large scale upskilling, continuous reskilling, etc. of the talent, help scale all this technology POCs that are being kind of done in different areas like AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, etc. Lastly, I think very important, bring in the right tools and accelerators to drive additional value to GCCs, which they are not able to do it themselves because of economies of scale and also and so on and so forth. The last portion is again coming back to my core versus context. What is core today to GCCs may quickly become context tomorrow. Again, these are all signs of changing times, and
Right.
predominantly leave the context to the service providers. This is how I think the GCCs and the IT service providers can come together, add tremendous value to the enterprises, and really enlarge a pie and make it worthwhile for both of us. So those are my initial thoughts, Anish.
No, I can't agree more on that, Ananth, because I think you rightly said the time is very ripe for the IT service providers and the GCCs to come together, bring their forces together to focus more on the outcomes and the impact it creates. And this is something that even our landscape report that we did last year, the Nasscom Zenov landscape report, GCC landscape report, clearly captures. It clearly captures as one of the trend that there is a need for a more symbiotic relationship between the IT service providers and GCC. And also, given the maturity, you talked about it, the three pillars, and you talked about how ecosystem plays a very important role, right? And in that sense, when we are talking about these two partnerships, what it will really bring is that traditionally it has all been about cost arbitrage, right? But we have matured much beyond that. Now we are talking about creating impact, business value, business impact, and that is where this partnership is going to really create that value. But moving on, in the past we have seen this, they were actually operating in parallel in more often or not, right? But if we have to really change that working model and make it more collaborative, right, make it co-innovation driven or partnership driven, then what are your thoughts on that? How would that happen, or how would that transit happen?
Sure, Anish. And I think the best way to articulate my thoughts is through two examples, two anecdotes. First one, a global leader in shipping and logistics, specialized in container shipping. Okay, they already had 1,000 plus people, global business operations set up in India. However, a couple of years back, they wanted to kind of set up a generative AI, or rather AI innovation and R&D lab. Okay. And, because of the challenges, inherent challenges in terms of attracting talent, of course, the talent itself is scarce. They needed a jump-starting support. That's when they came to us. Their focus was how to explore all these new technologies and adapt to emerging scenarios. This was an uncharted territory for them. Second is, how do they accelerate the AI adoption globally in their enterprise? And thirdly, make it a very sustainable setup in continuously generating new ideas and proof of concepts and etc. Right? So this is where we join hands together to create this AI innovation and R&D lab. And in about 2 years, we helped them set up a core team of about 30 people. Now they are fully self-sufficient. But more importantly, in parallel, we also help them set up a scaling engine. Okay, so once this proof of concepts and minimum viable products are done by this core lab, that in order for that to be rolled out to the enterprise globally, that's what we are now helping them with. Okay, so this became a great win-win collaboration. So this is one example. The second example is of a large European software product powerhouse. They have been in the country for the last more than 2 decades. Okay, what they wanted to do was, they wanted to re-architect one of their 2-decade-old product, okay, which was a very successful in the mid-market arena. Uh, Basically, it's a technology migration from a two-tiered architecture to a more user experience-based three-tier and microservices architecture. So this is again the core versus content comes into play. As a software product powerhouse, their focus is on feature enhancements, product management, etc. So they told that, look, I will help define all this, the target architecture, etc. But can I take the help of a partner for two reasons? Okay. One is how can you really kind of bring in your tools and various automation in the software engineering aspects, be it automated code generation or unit testing, etc. Okay, this can help them do this migration faster, cheaper, better, right? I think that was the most important aspect. So we rolled up our sleeves and said that, yeah, we will absolutely do it. Secondly, again, to make it powerful for them, continue to allow them to continue to focus on the product feature enhancement in parallel, okay, without being dependent on us, right? So this was a fantastic collaborative, win-win proposition that we had for this one, for this high-tech software company that I talked about. One was a traditional logistics company, as you could imagine, but for these two different clients, I think this in this generative AI and the technology shift world that is happening today, this collaboration becomes extremely meaningful, and it was greatly value adding for both for various reasons, right? So I see a lot of such examples. Ultimately, I think the walls are really getting broken, Anish. I think we are today talking about the GCCs and partners coming together in various different engagement models, including co-hosted models, where different partners are coming together, and it's truly working as a one team ultimately to deliver value to their enterprise, right? Those are the changes that are happening in the world today.
No, thanks for sharing these real world examples because that clearly tells the story, right? How there are specific white spaces for both parties to operate and not step over each other's territory, if I might say that. But I think what really makes it successful is that the GCC is very clear about their strategy and, like you said, the core why and what they want to achieve out of that AI strategy, while the service providers can help them seed it, scale it up, bring in the right amount of tools and KPIs to keep measuring the success or the impact of the AI project that they are running, right? But if you look currently, Ananth, most of the enterprises are still in that pilot phase, right? Most of the AI projects are either in the pilot or in the MVP stages. Um, while there are few examples which have like really transformative, which have proved that yes, it is going to stay, but mostly it is in that pilot stage. So my next question would be around that. So if we have to uh, what according to you are the key challenges which is holding up this scaling up or this transformation, and how can GCCs and IT services can providers can come together to overcome those barriers?
No, great question. But first of all, I'll share with you some good news, which recently came out of our Capgemini Research Institute report. The topic was generative AI and agentic AI in business operations. So business operations constitutes, supply chain, finance and accounting, HR and customer operations. Okay. The survey of about 1,600 plus organizations gave a very, very positive view of impact of AI in business ops. Three outputs. One is an impressive average 1.7x ROI. Second is there is more and more confidence in AI's commercial viability, with 40% of the organization stating that they are getting a ROI within 1 to 3 years. And thirdly, at least a 26% operational cost savings in these business functional areas, right? So things are really changing fast, at least in the business operation space. Is this true for the core business functions like, let's say, an R&D, manufacturing, or software engineering? There are a lot of claims being made. We need to wait and watch, but at least I can see the needle start moving in the business operation space, from the impact of AI, right? However, not all is hunky dory. Definitely, there are challenges. I would want to kind of call out three of them. One is limited trust. It really impedes the AI adoption, and clearly came out of that survey. 40% of the execs believe the risks of implementing AI agents outweigh the benefits. An
Mm.
example of a recent Canadian Airlines AI chatbot, which assured a discount to a passenger which the airline was not able to fulfill. You might have heard about that. The court ordered the airline to pay the passenger in damages. Okay, they said that, like, look, you are liable for your AI chatbot, right? The second important hurdle, in my view, is the technology readiness, especially the data foundation. Okay, and it came as a huge, revelation, at least to me. Only 9% of the organizations interviewed say that they are fully prepared in terms of data integration and interoperability. I think it's a huge impediment. You cannot build a castle on a weak foundation. And thirdly, an insufficient experience collectively in making the right choice of technology. Again, I'll restrict it to the business operation space. The choice of a robotic process automation or AI ML or Gen AI or agentic AI. When to choose what is not clear to many, right? And it results in suboptimal utilization, etc. A simple example is this, expense processing. Expense processing, traditional RPA often fails and escalates the tasks to humans. It kind of defeats the purpose of operational efficiency. However, one of our clients actually used intelligent document processing to extract structured data from all these unstructured receipts, put a Gen AI layer on top, and
Mhm.
reason it through ambiguous cases when rules fall short. So basically, it was a kind of a learning. It went through a training kind of a model, and then the automation agent then presented the results to a human, etc. Right. So ultimately, the whole thing, the expense processing as a area, got completely automated, and it resulted in 80% reduction in processing time, improved compliance, and satisfied end users as well as the finance teams, right? So, but
Mhm.
coming back to your point of GCCs and service providers again, I strongly again believe the GCCs must focus on embedding trust in the AI solution framework. That's extremely crucial. That's what I think the most important role of a GCC is. And secondly, lay a very solid data foundation. To me, that is the core, right? You cannot leave it to anybody else. You take care of your own data foundation, and that's where I think GCCs can play a role. And then lastly, the choice of the right technology, what I mentioned, to the right problem statement. If these can be taken care of by the GCCs, and they could in turn leverage the partners for the heavy lifting, execution, scaling, right? I think that is the way I see this entire space emerging. Leverage your own people for the right things that you want to do for your enterprise, and leverage the service providers for the scaling and heavy lifting.
Right. No, I think you hit it very right when you say that many of the AI projects fail because of the lack of the AI readiness,
Yeah,
right? Be it the data foundational layer or many other things. And I think that's another interesting area where a lot of service providers should bring in their power, right,
yeah,
of the knowledge that they have and the skills they have. If you can
absolutely.
develop a assessment framework or a tool which can help enterprise assess how ready they are for the AI adoption. I think that will go a long way in helping these enterprises achieve their intended business result.
Absolutely, Anish. Anish, and I think, while we discussed a lot of these collaboration between GCCs and the service providers in the midst of this rapid technology shift, uh, I'm just kind of trying to do some stargazing. Okay. And of course, with you at the helm of affairs at Nasscom, which has a great vantage point of looking at all these things, right? What, in your view, is that, one bold shift that you expect to see in the next 2 to 3 years? How do you kind of see this, in the context of GCCs and IT service providers, etc.? What is that one bold shift that you expect to see in the next 2 to 3 years?
Thanks, Anat, for that question. I think while you talked about the positive news from your survey, right, there are some skeptics also who are challenging the growth trajectory that everyone is hoping to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think there is some merit in terms of being aware of those challenges, looking it from a perspective, so that we don't, we don't become complacent in our journey, right? So from that perspective, I think the one most important shift that will happen is that we will move away from these pilots. There is one, we are in need of those two or three success story, big transformative projects, right, which really build that trust that you talked about earlier, right? That if I am able to see, right now we have touched upon through AI parts of the problem or address parts of the problem. You talked about expenses and many such processes, right, where the AI or the agentic AI has been used to just address one part of the whole process, right?
Mhm.
I think the time is right where we try to address the whole process, make it transformative, look at it from an angle where the whole process which takes or which has been done in a traditional way changes. And it will lead to those productivity gains. It will obviously lead to those cost savings as well. But beyond that, I think human will always there be in the loop, right? We did not talk about so far about the ethical concerns around AI, right? The especially about job losses and all. But one big transformative project or two big such project which changes the process, builds that trust, and makes sure that the upskilled workforce is, a big part of that. I
Yeah.
think that is going to happen in next 2 to 3 years. How and when and where, I don't know. But I am sure about one thing, that both the service providers and GCCs will play a equally important role in achieving that dream. But
Yeah.
what according to you is, one that change? If I may
Yeah.
ask you back again.
Yeah, honestly, Anish, I've been thinking through it, but the exponential speed at which the technology is progressing, very difficult to say anything about the bold shifts in the next 2 to 3 years. But I will take a bold attempt to predict the future, right? And I'll go for two. One is the talent model transformation. This equally holds good for both GCCs and service providers, right? I think I've been talking about this. Again, there was one fantastic Capgemini Research Institute report that talked about the fabric of the organization structure itself changing. Okay, I don't think we'll be talking about pyramid anymore. Okay, it
Hmm.
could potentially become a diamond structure. It could become a hourglass structure. We don't know, right? So with that kind of a change of the organization structure itself, the question is, what would happen to the economic model of both the GCCs and service providers? Okay. How do you continue to deliver value, which is much beyond your cost? Okay. I don't have an answer, but all I'm trying to tell you is the talent model transformation and the organization model transformation will be will have a telling effect in the next 2 to 3 years. Okay. That, puts a segue into the next one, which is specific to service providers. What we have been kind of talking about for the last 2 decades, the holy grail of non-linear revenue model. Okay, my hunch is that hopefully that will be forcefully achieved. Okay, because of this technology shift in the next few years, right? So as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So the time has come, for the service providers to start reporting the nonlinear revenue model, which I hope it happens in the coming years. So lastly, since we have always been talking about collaboration and cooperation, I think human ingenuity will always trump AI. That's my hope. And as the author Yuval Harari says, Homo sapiens are in the top of the value chain because they are the only species that can cooperate flexibly in large numbers. And I'm sure we will continue to do that even better, Anish. Back to you.
Yeah. No, no. I think this conversation can just go on and on, but in the interest of time, let's conclude now. And I think you rightly mentioned that the human will always be in the loop and will lead this journey, this transformative journey. And of course, the like you talked about how the orgs will change. I think those days are not far when a HR business partner would be called upon to manage a team of humans plus agentic AI, or bots, or whatever. We don't know. No one can predict what shape it can take, but that's definitely what we are looking at. But thank you so much, Ananth, for your time and sharing your perspective. This is really interesting, and we are looking forward to a very interesting time. Thank you so much for sharing your views.
Thank you so much, Anish. Wonderful conversing with you. Appreciate it.